A few weeks ago, I was at a bar with one of my American friends in Barcelona, and some girls came up to us and they asked us where we were from. My friend said that he was from Texas and that we were both Americans. A few minutes later, one of the girls calls out to one of her friends and they're speaking Norwegian. So I turned to her and started speaking Swedish to her, and she was so surprised that I was speaking Swedish. She's like, "I thought you were an American." And I'm like, "Well, I am from America, I am an American, but I also speak Swedish and I have my life here in Sweden." And it made me reflect on my experience and how do I identify, because so many times when I was in Barcelona, it's a very touristy city. So you have a lot of college kids, especially a lot of American college kids, or just a lot of Americans in general, a lot more out and about in Barcelona than what I experience here in Sweden on a day-to-day basis. And I always felt like the Americans, they really stand out. They're really loud, they have the American accents. They are just so different than what I feel like I am right now. But it also transported me back in time to when I was a college kid in America. I was probably the exact same way. Another experience that I had recently after that is I was hanging out with a friend and my brother called me on FaceTime. So I answered the call and I'm having a conversation with my brother, and my friend that was overhearing our conversation, she was like, "Wow, your brother has way more of an American accent than you do. That's what I expect an American to sound like." And she's like, "You seem to be even speaking English more like a European, like you're getting a little bit more of a Swedish accent in the way that you speak English." And I've noticed that there have been multiple people that have made this comment. For example, I'll be out at a restaurant and I'll hear somebody speaking another language, I'll ask them where they're from, and then they'll be like, "But where are you from? We couldn't really figure it out based on your English." So it's so interesting because I've lived in Sweden for so long that even this side of me that was very, very American, it seems to be influenced in every way, even from the very words that I'm speaking. When I really think about it, I've pretty much spent the entirety of my adult life in Sweden. I moved here when I was 22 years old, and I'm gonna be 28 years old in August. So much of the life that I have experienced as an adult, because think about when you're a kid, you're living with your parents, you don't have a life of your own. Then you go away to college and you're sort of living in a bubble. It's not a true representation of what it's like to live like a regular adult. And then right after I finished all of my education in the US, that's when I moved to Sweden. So I have all of my sense of independence and living like an adult. I had all those experiences here. Because of that, I feel like Sweden has had a huge impact on pretty much every aspect of my life, from the clothes I wear, the thoughts I have, my political beliefs, because when you're in this environment and you're constantly surrounded by one type of thing, that's gonna impact you. And I think that's why it's so interesting for me to reflect on the cultural differences in different countries, because culture can have an impact on the individual level. So do I consider myself more Swedish or American now? Well, I actually think I'm somewhere in between, because when I meet Americans or spend time with Americans, I realize how much Sweden has affected me and how different I am in certain ways. And when I'm in Sweden, I also feel different because I've had my entire upbringing, the first 22 years of my life, or actually 21 out of the 22 because I spent one in Germany, but a large portion of my younger days in the US. So I feel like my identity is this interesting mix between being American and being Swedish. And actually, I really like that. I like that I'm able to see things through different lenses, see people's experiences from different perspectives. I can relate to certain aspects of American culture that Swedish people will just never understand. And vice versa. I feel like I can relate to things in Sweden that maybe American people have a hard time understanding. So much also of integrating yourself into a culture is the language that you speak. And I think this can really be illustrated by the Swedish that I speak, because I speak Swedish with an American accent. I speak it fluently, but even now, I'm never gonna be fully Swedish. I'm never gonna be speaking Swedish without any sort of accent, pronouncing everything perfectly. People are always gonna tell that I come from somewhere else. But for me, that's totally okay, because I'm proud of my roots. I'm proud of where I come from, and I'm so happy to have had all of those experiences. But I'm also very happy to have had all of these experiences, and I've really fallen in love with living in the country of Sweden. If you want to see me speaking Swedish with my American accent, go ahead and check out this video right here. With that being said, guys, thanks for watching this one, and I hope to see you in another one soon.